On this episode, talking about routine work. Hey everybody, this is The Quarter Show, and we're talking about routine work. We brought it up last week and we're bringing it up again. And you know, the concept of being able to get in a rhythm or get into your routine, it cannot be underscored enough. I can tell you that so much of the success that I've had in sales over the years, currently, previously, really boiled down to having a solid routine. I think routine gets a bad rap sometimes because people think, you know, routine, monotonous, same thing over and over again. But you know, routine can be an incredible vehicle for creativity, for rhythm, for doing great work. It really can. And committing to a routine, which means that you can get rid of a lot of thinking work, get rid of the busy work, get rid of the things that distract you from being ultra focused. And I know for me that when I'm doing great work, often I'm in a great routine. And certainly for sales, if you can plan your day in a way that your routine is totally down, that means you can just hunker down and get into a rhythm and just get the work done. And for me, that might mean that I write my battle plan the night before with an exact, 10 or 15 key targets that I need to do the next day. I write my lineup the night before or the day before at the end of the day for the exact things that I need to do first thing the following next morning. Write out my lineup in terms of who I'm going to tackle, what I'm going to do. Map out, take my battle plan and my lineup and put that into my calendar and sort of block it out. Because for me, when I get into my day, if I'm looking at a sales day, for example, I want to be able to focus. I don't want to be able to be distracted. I don't want to be distracted. I want to be able to just execute. You don't want to think. You don't want to be thinking, what do I need to do next? What about this? What about that? You want to be able to just execute. And great execution comes from great routine. And if you build that in, it's like, okay, send out your sales email that needs to go out, let's say on Monday and Wednesday or Tuesday and Thursday, and you have that in and you know exactly what you need to do, and you sort of frame out your each day and your entire week, and you sort of build out a successful routine. So in the morning, from this time you do your prospecting, from this time you're working on your sales closing, and then your calendar is a certain way, and you get all the other stuff off your plate that derails you or distracts you or takes you off routine. And what you'll find is by getting in a really successful work routine, you become more creative, you become better at your role, and you start getting more wins, you start getting more results time and time again. And I found that when I have a straggler on my team, when I have somebody who's straggling or floundering or whatever, it's pretty easy. In fact, I can look at them and start kind of digging through what they're doing, and they've somehow, to greater or lesser degree, gotten derailed. Their routine is out to some level, and they don't really know it, and they're sort of floundering, and they're just sort of taking a bunch of random motions, and they're just trying to sort of work, and they're doing like busy work and trying to like build things up and get things going, but it's just random motion. It's just random actions, and generally speaking, random actions don't really lead to good results. And so, I would encourage you to look at it, what does your day need to look like? What is a successful day? It's like having your battle plan, having your lineup, having your calendar blocked out, this is when you do your own marketing functions for sales, this is when you have your appointments, this is when you do this, and having sort of a successful model or platform on routine on how you go about your day, how you go about your week, and having all sort of pre-planned and mapped out. Because one of the worst things is like you go and do one action, right? And then when you're done that action, you're like, okay, what's next? What do I need to get to now? And then you start like inventing, and you start thinking about that throughout your day. You think that derails you every time, and it takes a good 10 to 15 minutes or maybe 20 minutes to get back up to speed, back into the rhythm of the next task. And if you're trying to figure out, okay, what's next? You had a successful action, you do a successful action, and then you don't have it, you don't know what's next, and you start digging and trying to plan, you don't know where to go from there. And it leads to an unsuccessful day, unproductive day, and you're not really crushing or maxing out the time that you have. So build out a routine.
Yeah, part of the challenge can be also like when you, especially in sales, when you get into a point where you have to measure like how much production you're getting done in terms of like creating opportunities or cycles or moving prospects along, and you can get it to a point where you're like it's very distracting. It throws you off your routine when you need to get something done, and you're like, I got to hit a home run. Whatever I do, I have to do something. I've got to like get some deal signed off, and you can get frantic. Yeah. And that alone can derail everything. It can absorb your attention. It can just make everything sort of like just derail, right? So it can be a challenge if you don't lay enough groundwork. If you aren't methodical with what you're doing. And this is anything, right? This is your attention. This is not just sales. This is any post. If your attention gets absorbed into one area so thoroughly, you'll be off your game to some degree. You'll be spending extra time or not able to think. You'll have 2 emails open and an appointment to go to and all sorts of different things like this where you haven't finished the cycles you're on. So like even doing something like you have a specific prospect that you want to close for business, and you get off the phone with them or you come away from the appointment or whatever, and they have the proposal, and then your attention is just on it and you're like, they need to sign off, they need to sign off, and you're just thinking about it. Just take that, put it later in your calendar, later that day to follow up with them, and put a slot there, and then move on. And do not engage that anymore in your own mind, because to the degree that you're like, well, they're going to sign off and it's going to solve everything. It's going to solve all my numbers and it's going to solve everything. You're in trouble. You're in trouble.
Yeah, and your routine or lack thereof is failing you. I'm reading a book right now, listening actually an Audible by Cal Newport called Deep Work. It's an interesting book, but it talks about just being able to go deep, do deep work instead of shallow work. And I think a lot of sales is obviously cope work. It's doing a lot of cope and trench work and things like that and balancing the two. But the truth is that having a routine equals rhythm, in my opinion. And having a routine where you can hunker down, that is deep work for sales. It's like having your routine, and committing to your routine allows you to just do the deep work, which is really productive, incredible sales work, and get the most amount done, rather than this sort of like frantic sort of cope and figure out as you go throughout the day. That's not very successful. And I found that the times that I've done the best and done the biggest numbers and things like that, and just gotten the most wins, is really when you sort of commit to a routine. You map out your routine, you know exactly what you do, you don't invent things as you go, and you just stick to it, and day in, day out, week in, week out. Every day is a new day. You come in, you treat every single day as a new day, but it's still, it's hunkering down in your routine, like it's this time, you do this, I 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 do this, and then you just commit, okay, now I'm gonna work my lineup, now I'm gonna do my marketing actions, now I do this, now I do that, now I do all the different things, and you kind of work through. Even on your sales cycles, is like, now I do this, now I do this, now I do this, and just sticking to that routine. And ultimately, I truly believe that routine equals rhythm, which equals wins. You're going to get better wins with that, and you're just going to get a lot more done. Hopefully it helps. We've got the battery light blinking at us here, so we're going to wrap it up. And we'll have more coming at you soon. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel right there. We certainly would appreciate you watching, and love seeing the subscribers go up. And then if you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the comment section. Okay, thanks.